Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name is the video game with perhaps the most needlessly descriptive title, second only to Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Good evening, my name is John Hub, I talk about video games on the internet, and I recently challenged myself to 100% Like a Dragon Gaiden in under 24 hours live on stream. Will Like a Dragon's shortest installment prove to be more than I can handle? Is 100%ing this game the calm before the storm that is infinite wealth? Could I even stay awake for 24 hours straight? Find out all of this and more in my 100% every Yakuza game challenge known only as Year of Like a Dragon. Oh geez, oh god, oh geez. Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, usually referred to as simply Gaiden or Like a Dragon Gaiden, is a spin-off game released just 2 months before Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. The game follows Kazuma Kiryu, who assumes the pseudonym of Joryu, and the game aims to fill in all the gaps of where he was for Yakuza Like a Dragon, the first mainline game in the series to not feature Kiryu as a playable character. If I had to describe the story of this game in one word, it would be iconic. First of all, Joryu has erased his name, yes, but it's like he erased it with one of those erasable pen erasers, because he gets made and recognized at every possible turn, whether he's talking to someone that knew him before or not. The only person who doesn't know him immediately is the newly introduced character Akame. She enlists the help of Joryu as muscle to help run her information network, and wait a minute, I know her.
I'm on that good kush and alcohol.
If getting immediately recognized after erasing his name wasn't enough, this game also has 2 fantastic villains in Nishitani, who everyone thinks is hot but also hates, and Shishido, who everyone loves but I've never seen anyone say he's even remotely attractive. I don't really care what they look like, I swiftly beat both of their asses at the first chance I got. Now coming into any game in the franchise, I always aim to finish the story mode as quickly as possible. As a general rule, I like to do every activity in games one at a time, whenever possible. This makes it easier to record and cuts down on the time it takes to travel from one activity to another. On a more practical note, side content in this game is locked behind storyline progression more often than not, so beelining the story would be the best way to make sure I don't have to pivot between a million different things all the time. I gotta say though, this game is among one of the easiest games in the franchise. There's no trophies or completion requirements tied to difficulty, so I was able to play on the beginner difficulty and breeze through everything. Not only that, Joryu is very powerful this time around. He has access to 2 fighting styles. He's got his Dragon style, which is a street fighting style he has in every game, as well as Agent style, which utilizes more technical martial arts based strikes as well as a number of gadgets. You've got some drones that do no damage, a Spider-Man tool that's pretty cool, and a cigarette that's able to blow away an entire crowd of enemies. This style is more well suited to crowds, whereas Dragon style is better for one-on-one fights. There's completion challenges tied to defeating enemies in each style, so I developed a pretty balanced playstyle, but I greatly prefer Dragon personally. But like I was saying, I blazed through the story, finishing it in just under 3 hours. With that done, it was time to move on to the real grind. Since I was staying up for, at worst, over 24 hours during the course of this run, the first thing I wanted to focus on were the activities that would require the most brain power. So I started with the mindless activity of scouring the map for locker keys. This game takes place in Sotenbori, which has never had a chance to be the main map of any games in the series. It shows up in 0, Kiwami 2, 5, and Like a Dragon, but this is the first game where it's not overshadowed by Kamurocho or some other map. Is what I would say if there wasn't this spectacular coliseum in the game. A large part of the story takes place in this massive coliseum, and trust me, we will be here a lot during this run. There are locker keys strewn about Sotenbori as well as the coliseum, and I was able to pick up all of these except for some that are in high-ranked coliseum areas. The locker keys give generally useful items like recovery items, minigame cheat items, as well as gear. This took a bit under 30 minutes. Next up, I played pool. I famously suck at pool in these games, so I needed to play with as much focus as possible. In order to complete pool in this game, you need to play a game with every pool rule set, that's 8-ball, 9-ball, rotation, and 4-ball. You need to beat the easy and normal one-shot pool challenges. These are challenges where you need to get the ball in a specific pocket through a damn obstacle course. I got through this one eventually, but later challenges required me to make the tiniest micro adjustments to eventually sink the ball. You only get 10 tries per set of 3 challenges as well, so failing on the 3rd one was super punishing. And we're still not done with pool, because you need to win 20 matches of pool total. You could play against the easiest CPU difficulty for most of it, but the final pool challenge requires you to get 10,000 pool points, which are a currency you get by just playing the game. There's a first time reward for beating different difficulty CPUs, So I just had to do a game or two against a harder CPU, and I had the requirement done after the 20 wins. Phew, now that that's done, I have... So despite thinking that that took way longer than it needed to, I really didn't see a way to speed up those pool games, but I digress. The next challenge was even worse, and her name is Mahjong. There are 4 Mahjong tables you have to win a game at, and you also need to win 10 hands. There is 1 cheat item for Mahjong in the entire game, so technically that's 3 tables and 9 hands. I played as well as I possibly could, I was at maximum focus, and what could be perceived as a measly challenge took me 3 hours. If every activity took this long, I wasn't going to be close to my 24-hour goal. Every game in the franchise includes an arcade, where there's a plethora of mini-games to play. I started off with what ended up being the absolute hardest, which was the UFO catcher. You know those claw games with the impossible to pick up prizes? What if you had to pick up every prize in those? There are 36 distinct prizes to win in the claw machine, and you'd best believe I spent entirely too long getting each and every one of them. I used to love penguins before I had to pick up 5 of these fuckers. This took an hour and a half to get everything. I then partook in a cavalcade of arcade games. Virtua Fighter 2 is the first arcade game I tackled. This one has shown up in many other games in the series, and it's the easiest to complete this time around. You just have to win a match with every character, and win 20 matches total. There's 10 characters to choose from, so I believe that's 3 per character? Damn it. Next up was Fighting Vipers 2, and it's the same exact deal as Virtua Fighter 2. So a match with each character, 20 matches. There's 11 characters in this one, so I'm not even going to try to figure it out. 3? Fuck. Sonic the Fighters is the last fighting game available in the arcade. There are 8 playable characters. Okay, yeah, it's the same deal. 2.5 per character. For real? Motor Raid is a cool futuristic racing game where you can whack the shit out of other racers. Completing this one requires you to complete a championship and finish a race on every stage. It's a pretty easy one, especially considering you can't fall off the track, and bumping into walls barely slows you down. And I'm built different. The final arcade game is another racing one called Sega Racing Classic 2. I'm only assuming it's a racing game from the name, because you only need to play this one 10 times, and playing it means that you can start up the arcade machine and then immediately quit out and then start again, which is exactly what I did 10 times. The UFO catcher plus the arcade games took 3 hours, meaning we're sitting at a clean... I was at the halfway point now, and I made the most of it. In just an hour, I was able to beat golf and karaoke. Completing golf requires you to play the minigame all the way through 10 times, get 300 points on the closest to the pin challenges. These are exactly what they sound like, and with a maximum possible score of 2,000 for each course, this is more than feasible. Lastly, you need to get 10 bingos in the bingo golf course. This is a cute little challenge where you have 10 swings to knock out tiles to make bingos. This challenge requires extreme precision to do in real life, making sure you're one of the greatest golf players of all time. Great job, bud! Karaoke is as simple as hitting buttons to the music. Completion for this one is equally as simple. You just need to perform every song with 90% accuracy or higher. Wait, hang on, my song is on. A long December, and there's reason to believe maybe this year will be better than the last. I was firmly through the halfway point, so I got started on everything related to the Akame network. This is located in a hideout at the southeast corner of Sotenbori, and it's the hub for basically every non-minigame side activity in the game. You have side quests in the form of Akame network requests, which you unlock as you level up the network. These are functionally the same as sub-stories in previous Like a Dragon titles, except these ones are pretty fast to beat, especially if you're a dirty cutscene skipper like me. Wait, I've seen this guy before. I did these network requests at the same time as stroll and patrol missions, which are micro-tasks given by Akame and by people on the street. These are like if you boiled down a side quest to just an objective with no story, and usually they feature you just giving someone an item you've collected, or using your Spider-Man wire tool to get a cat out of a tree or something. There's a couple of exceptions, like an NPC will describe a location and you have to go there to get a picture of that location. Same goes for the Akame network requests, where it's usually just going to an area of the map, getting some sort of exposition before there's a fight or a dialogue or something like that. But the biggest exception I can think of is one where you have to find 7 hidden golden balls and summon Shenron to make a wish. Most of the things I did for the next few hours were an absolute blur because I did a little bit of everything at once. I'm going to list these in rapid succession. I did all of the Akame Network requests and almost all of the Stroll and Patrol missions, of which there are a ton. The Akame Network has a list of upgrades you need to purchase. These give you access to more features, an expanded shop selection within the network, among other things. One last strange thing you can do at the network is give Akame cigarettes as a gift. There's a completion metric for giving her 10 cigarettes, and by this point in my run I'd given her 1. There is a 20-minute in-game cooldown time between each gift. I'd spent a good amount of time not gifting her throughout this run, so it's vital that I go back to the network to give her a cigarette whenever possible now. Easy peasy, clearly nothing to worry about. Most of the achievements for the platinum in this game are pretty straightforward, and it's stuff that I'd be doing anyway to complete the in-game completion log, but there was one achievement that required me to use the Spider-Man tool to throw enemies into the river. I did that. The game requires you to have every food and drink at every restaurant. Luckily Sotenbori is a fairly small city, so doing that is as easy as it's ever been. You need to find every piece of gear. This was pretty tough because gear is all over the place, and there's a bit of gear locked behind content I hadn't yet completed. So I got everything I possibly could by this point. Pretty much all of it can be found through requests or shops, so I got everything I could afford, and I'd go back for the rest later. I did all these things I just listed around the same time, all within an hour until the entirety of the game's map was explored. Let's just say, I quickly milked this game's maps dry.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
With 10 hours left, I cleaned up every minigame that's left up to chance, and prayed for good odds. Poker and Blackjack both require you to win 30,000 chips, an extremely easy feat for Blackjack and a pretty easy feat for Poker with the use of cheat items. Same goes for Oichokabu and Koikoi. The Oichokabu cheat item can get you the completion requirement in just one hand, while the Koikoi one I was able to get in 2 games. The remainder of the hour was spent playing Shogi. There are 3 requirements for this one. First, you have to win 10 matches of any kind, then win all of Puzzle Shogi, which there are 10 puzzles that are copy-pasted from a previous Yakuza game, and easy to beat for that reason. Lastly, you have to play 10 Shogi challenges, which are full matches where you have pieces missing. The keyword there is play, because you can just play a match, lose as quickly as possible, and do that 10 times for this one. The gambling games in Shogi took just 1 hour altogether. 9 hours left, and I still haven't talked about the very best part of Like a Dragon Gaiden, which is of course the Colosseum. The Colosseum is the primary side content for this game. It's got its own storyline and hours of content to get through. It also has the added benefit of letting us complete combat-related completion metrics, and it's the best way to make money. I don't know if I can recommend that you 100% this whole game, but definitely don't miss out on this one. Funnily enough, the game agrees with that because you have to rank up to gold rank in the Colosseum during the story. The Colosseum is divided into 4 types of fights. There's tournaments, which are similar to the Colosseum in the other games in the series. You face off against a few rounds of one-on-one fights. You have to beat all the unique tournaments, and beat 30 tournaments total. I just spammed the same easy tournament over and over to get this one. Next up are Hell Rumbles. These are fights against a big wave of enemies. Once again, beat every unique one, and win this type 30 times. Special event matches appear once you're at the threshold of a certain rank. You need to win 10 of these, and the easiest one by far is Mr. Try and Hit Me, where you just have to strike this guy once. The absolute best Colosseum battle though is Hell Team Rumble. Joryu works in a team of 10 members to take down an opposing team. It starts off as normal enemies, then at the end you fight huge jacked demon men. The very best part of this mode is that you recruit members of your team by fighting in the Colosseum and during certain side quests, and you're able to level them up and build bond with them as well. It's the closest thing to Chao Garden we've seen in a Sega game in a long time. Not only that, you can play as any of the members you recruit to your team in any Colosseum mode. My favorite guy was this chicken man who can dish out an insane amount of damage with his special ability. You have to win 50 Hell Team Rumbles, and I spent a lot of that 50 beating the final one, which gives you millions of yen per victory. This ensured that I had enough money for everything left in the game. Speaking of that, the most expensive things in the game by far are upgrades for Joryu, which in total cost about 80 million yen. A no upgrade Joryu and a fully upgraded one is truly a night and day difference. The other most expensive thing is gear, with the most expensive gear being a 50 million yen pair of underwear. Seriously, dude? But with all this bread, I almost forgot that there's a whole series of side quests associated with the Colosseum. You fight a series of reigning champions in one-on-one and team battles, and they're the toughest of the bunch by far. But comparatively to me, they were nothing because I'm literally the best ever to do it, and I'm built different, and yeah, so fuck you, yeah. And after all that was done, I had to do the final side quest, facing off against Amon. You have to face off against the Amon clan in every game in the series, and if I weren't on the easiest difficulty, this would be one of the hardest Amon fights. He heals like crazy every time he hits you, has access to the same moves Joryu has, and becomes extremely damage resistant when you use the same move on him more than once. It was probably the single hardest combat encounter in this game, but hey, at least it wasn't Mahjong.
Bam! You're dead!
Okay, that was a lot. How much time do we have left? Even though the Coliseum took longer than I would have liked, there were only a handful of things to do left at this point. I had 3 minigames left to complete, but I wanted to clean up some things that I was unable to attend to before. I started by gifting a cigarette to Akame, and then got right to work finishing up the combat-related completion requirements. The only one I needed to do left was to destroy 1,000 objects during battle. This refers to picking up weapons off the ground and using them until they break, but also you can easily get this one by going to a convenience store and knocking everything off the shelves. I also spent this time cleaning up locker keys that were inaccessible before I completed the Coliseum, and doing a couple of annoying stroll and patrol missions. After all of this, I had just the 3 minigames, the cigarettes, and 4 hours remaining. I chose to tackle the hardest of the 3 remaining minigames, Pocket Circuit. You build a model car that's the best suited for the type of track you race on, and it's a big game of trial and error. It's also a huge time sink, because although I had a yakuzillion dollars to spend, you can only buy Pocket Circuit related items using the points you get from races. Oh, and predictably, you need every single car part to complete the game. You also need to beat every league race and win against every rival. Rivals appear as you go further along in the league races, and you need to take a break every 3 league races or so to go outside, scout out Pocket Circuit rivals, and only after talking to them do they become available as rivals in the Pocket Circuit. As I played through this one, I became increasingly worried about the 10 cigarettes that I had to gift to Kame. So worried, in fact, that I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that I was awake for 20 hours at this point. My routine at this point was to race, check the shop for new parts, recruit new rivals, before I'd check to see if Akame was ready to be gifted again. I did this 5 to 6 times and was only able to gift 1 or 2 cigarettes in this time. As it turns out, there was actually a 20-minute cooldown time between gifting cigarettes that does not seem to count down if you're in a loading screen, a cutscene, or a minigame. And my whole run up to this point was always in one of those states. My only hope was I could rush out the rest of the completion metrics and wait it out to gift Akame the rest of her cigarettes. 2 minigames. 5 cigarettes left to gift Akame. 2 hours left. That was all that went through my mind as I started up darts. Luckily, this one was an absolute breeze. All you need to do is play every darts game mode and beat every rival in darts, of which there are 8. Easy as hell. Next. The Cabaret Club. There are 5 hostesses that you have to visit, chat with, and raise to the highest possible bond level. I have never liked these cabaret clubs in any game in the series, and with time ticking down, getting close to these hostesses looked a little something like this. I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, done. The weirdest part of this one is instead of making character models of the hostesses and having Kiryu talk to them, you engage in this odd POV view with a 4K video of a hostess talking to you. The video files of these hostesses alone comprise about a third of Gaiden's 90 gig download size, which is honestly hilarious for something that took me 40 minutes to complete. With the 5 hostesses max, I had actually achieved every trophy in the game. If I were just going for the Platinum Trophy, my final time is 22 hours and 40 minutes for that. But of course, we gotta complete the in-game completion list too. I immediately ran to Akame to give her a cigarette, but realized I was missing a couple of small things. Part of ordering every food and drink in the game includes ordering all the drinks that are only available during the cabaret minigame, so I had to go back there and do that. One of the coolest features that I haven't mentioned yet is you can dress up at the boutique in the Coliseum and walk around using that fit, so I bought every single article of clothing until I had everything. I had 1 hour left. The only thing left was to give Akame cigarettes. As the clock ticked down to 52 minutes, I gave Akame another one. I almost cried. I was at 7 out of 10 cigarettes given. There's no definitive source online that corroborates what I was saying about a 20-minute cooldown, but I was certain that it was true. The clock went down to 32 minutes. I gave her another cigarette. And then 12 minutes, another cigarette. There was only one left to give. I was praying for a miracle and doing everything I could. I changed the game's frame rate in case somehow that impacted something. I rapidly changed the time of day. I took a taxi to other towns to reload the map. I reloaded my save file. But all I could do was stand there as the little time I had left ticked down. With 10 seconds left in my challenge, I spoke to Akame, and nothing. I was right. It was a 20-minute cooldown. My final time to complete Like A Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, was 24 hours, 8 minutes, and 19 seconds. At first, I truly didn't know how to feel. To set out to do something, having prepared for months by 100%ing 10 games before this, to have full faith in this just to barely be off the mark because of some damn cigarettes, I was admittedly upset. But then I really thought about it. This whole challenge, the 24-hour completion, and Year of Like a Dragon as a whole, it's not about winning or losing, succeeding or failing, none of it ever was. I did all of this because I want to share my love for games with the world. Because I'm so passionate about talking about games, and specifically the Like a Dragon franchise, that keeping it to myself just isn't enough for me. I had hundreds of viewers watching me on this journey, some of which I think stayed up the whole 24 hours with me. You guys are crazy for that, by the way. In the end, too, I had 2 of my closest friends, Addison and Solar, in a call with me to count down those last minutes. You guys rock, and so did the other guests that popped in throughout the stream. Their names are on the screen right now. Thank you so much for sharing this experience with me. Even if the challenge of completing Gaiden in under 24 hours was a failure, I don't regret doing it, nor do I regret the outcome. Sometimes, failing feels kinda good, because I got to go to bed knowing I tried my damnedest. The same can be applied to the rest of this challenge. The end of the year is fast approaching, and I'm still setting out to complete Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and release a video on it before the end of the year. I might be a bit bummed at first if I can't do it, but I am so proud of what I was able to accomplish with this challenge. I've linked the entire 24-hour VOD of this run in the description below, and I'd highly recommend you at least skim it. After the game was complete, I took the fattest nap, and I think it's time to put this video to bed as well. But first, would I recommend that you, the viewer, 100% Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name? No, but if you're going to 100% any game in the series, this is definitely the best one to complete. Thank you all so much for watching. As the name of all my patrons and YouTube members scroll across the screen, let me also tell you to like, comment, and subscribe. Something, only 30% of my viewers are subbed to the channel. I'm going beast mode right now, trying to 100% Infinite Wealth to get the video out this year, or at least complete the game. But if I don't, I'll see you when I see you. I'll see you next time for one last installment of Year of Like a Dragon. Have a good evening!